That was scary.
Okay, gang, so I've got the Husky 55 crank set in place here. There's barely any pressure on it. Well, there's no pressure. Look at that. It's already started going back up. I know it looks crooked to you. It is crooked. I've got a cheesy setup here. But we're going to go ahead and roll on it. Roll with it. It gets dangerous, I feel. Yeah, that's not working. Oh, boy, I'm pushing hard on it. Oh, God, I'm putting a lot of pressure on that. I don't think anything was done. It definitely didn't move at all. I think I'm going to have to take that to a shop and have them press it out. Because, yeah, I was wailing on that. I was really putting a lot of pressure. And, yeah, fact of the matter is, I don't think I can get it to come out. I did not foresee that. and honestly, I'm a little bit too scared to do it, to keep wailing on it. I think I'm going to just swing by a shop I know of here close by and see if I can't get them to just push out these pins for me. So this is the 254 crank. I took it to the shop. They got it that far. And, you know, it slipped out of the machine and bent the rod. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a slot in this, relieve some of the pressure, hopefully be able to get it out of there. Maybe now it'll come out. The reason I'm cutting it at an angle like that is because I don't want to hit this rod. Not that I'm going to reuse this rod, but practice for the next one that I want to do. If I just went straight across like this, I would definitely dig into that rod. God dang! Ah, jeez. Grind some more. Okay, so I cut into it like that this time.
That was scary.
I'm sure you guys are going to tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong. You're going to tell me that I'm supposed to have something in between the two crank weights to keep it from folding in on itself and stuff, because I don't know that. I don't know that that's supposed to be happening. There we go. All right, cool. Now maybe we can do something with that. 545 Mark I crank. There we go. All right, so progress has been made. Not exactly the progress that I had expected or wanted, but progress nonetheless. What we have is we have a 55 crank that has been split apart successfully without any damage. This is the rod, the bearing, the wrist pin, or the crank pin. We have a 254 XP crank that has suffered significant damage. So I couldn't get my press well, you know, you've been watching the video. So the shop did this. But we've got a good pin there to work with in case we need that bigger pin. That's 14 millimeters. I just measured it. And then kind of the coup de grace, we have a 545 Mark I pin and rod that is usable. Whew, come on. There we go. All right, I got some metal shavings in there. I have to clean them out really good from the grinding. But anyways, here's the thing that I want to compare. The 55 crank and 545 crank. Not crank, rod. They are nearly absolutely identical. I mean, they're not absolutely identical, but nearly. They are nearly. Let's see. So the 55. Oh, no way. No, okay. I thought maybe the crank bearings, the crank pin bearing would or crank rod bearing, whew, get it right, would fit. They were just different. No, it's not. So what we got to do is we got to measure the 55 crank pin versus the 545 crank pin. All right. All right, the 545 crank pin is a perfect 12 millimeters. The, what did I say? The 55, that was the 55, 12 millimeters. And this is the 545, 13 millimeters. So if I machine this on the ends to fit the smaller 12 millimeter, I could get 1 millimeter up and down. So that would be 2 millimeters stroked, which would be 34 millimeter, which is great, but I want 34 and a half. I want a 34 and a half millimeter stroke. That way I can get it as close as possible to a perfect 55 cc's. But I don't think I'm going to get what I want, fellas. I think that I'm going to have to settle with a 34 millimeter stroke, which is fine and dandy. Husky and Stihl used that. Well, Husky used it all the way up to 71 cc's with the 272 XP. Stihl, I don't know what their old stuff. Their old stuff probably did too, like the 440. Was that a 34 millimeter stroke? I don't know, but the definitely the MS400, the 266, 268 XP, you know, all of those 34 millimeter stroke. So make good power with 34 millimeter stroke. But then it's just a 254 XP. Because 254 XP had 34 millimeter stroke, 45 millimeter bore. None of this is worth my time and effort. But we're here. What is the exact displacement? Oh, come on. .45 millimeter bore to 34 millimeter stroke is 54.075 cc. I just wanted it to be close enough to 55 that I could actually say it's 55 cc's. Now I could run a 46 millimeter cylinder, and if I did that, we'd be all the way up to 56.5, which is the cc of a 357 XP. Anyways, yeah, that's where we're at, guys. I have some pins to work with. If I wanted to push for the 34.5 millimeter stroke, what I would have to do is I would have to get another 254, 257, 261, 262 crankshaft, take it apart so that I could salvage this rod, right? And then what I would have, the bad part about this right here is well, it's bigger and heavier, right? It's bigger and heavier. That's part of the reason why I don't want to run it. But it's also, you know, it's going to stick out a lot further because this is a lot bigger. And all of that, see, this is the original 55. Ooh. See how it sticks down? I'll have to cut out the bottom of my crankcase, which I'll do that no matter which direction I go, right? But I want to do it as little as possible. Also, have a lot more piston options if I keep the smaller rod with the smaller end right here. Okay, so yep, pretty much nail in the coffin. I've decided that if I'm doing this, I will be using the 545 Mark 1 rod, bearing, and pin. Because that right there is almost identical in length to the 55 rod. I'm going to be able to utilize this to build an offset crank, and it'll give me 2 millimeters of stroke more. So instead of the 32 millimeter stroke, I'll have the 34 millimeter stroke. So, and then as an added benefit, the 55 setup right here, this weighs 70 grams. 70 grams. The 254 XP setup weighs 87 grams. So if I was to utilize this, I would be adding 17 grams more rotating mass, reciprocating mass, right? Not really rotating, but reciprocating mass. 17 grams is a lot. That's a shit lot. Shit lot. It's a shit lot. So over the 55 original factory rod and wrist pin or crank pin. Whereas If I utilize the 545, this whole setup is only 65 grams. So this setup is 22 grams lighter than if I were to go with the 254 XP setup. This setup is also going to have a lighter bearing up top, wrist pin up top, and I will have more options with pistons to utilize if I utilize this crank. So yeah, we're gonna go with the 34 millimeter, utilizing a 545 Husqvarna rod and crank pin and bearing. We're going to utilize this bad boy right here, and we're just going to cut the ends to 12 millimeter, offset to one side, and that right there should give us an extra millimeter all the way up the top and all the way at the bottom. So, which means 34 millimeter stroke. 34 millimeter stroke, so you got more displacement and a lighter reciprocating rod setup, so should be like woohoo, woo. It should be better than a 254 XP. So I needed something to separate it from just being a 254 XP, because if you pick up a 254 XP, they're almost identical in size and weight to a 55 Rancher. So it's like, well, why not just get a 254 XP? But anyways, yeah, I think that'll be nice. I think that we will utilize that. It'll be a nice, quick ring, ding, ding. It'll be under 55 cc's, so there are some race classes that are 55 cc's, and so I'll be able to run in that. And if I wanted, I could go ahead and put a 46 millimeter open port setup on there and probably run pretty darn good. Because the extra displacement, I think it would work well, extra time and everything, to really fill up those open ports. And of course, getting a bigger carb and all that stuff too. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. Now all I got to do is try and turn this the way that I need it to be, using carbide inserts, which I'm told that it will work. I'm told that carbide will work. I don't know. So I'll give that a shot, and I'll try and turn this with the carbide. If it doesn't work, then I'll have to buy an expensive insert, CBN. I think it's what it's called. Carbide, boro, nitro, whatever it's called. And then, once I get it turned the way that I need to, I'll smash it back together, tack weld, see right here, the pin will go in there, and I'll tack weld at 9 and 3. Don't tack weld at noon and 6 p.m. No, you don't tack weld that way, because it'll have a tendency to want to do that. So you tack weld there, and I guess the side by side is not such a big deal, according to what I've been told. Yeah. And also, in utilizing this 545, this ain't it. In utilizing the 545 rod, it's so like identical in size to the 55 Rancher. You know, that big end there is the same size. You know, it's the same. So I may still have to, trench out my case there to make room for this because of the longer stroke and everything. But honestly, I don't think I'll have to. So if you can't tell at this point, I'm happy with the decision to run the 545 crank and crank pin. Or rod and crank pin. Anyways, that's enough for today.